Okay, so we found this, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus by on Joseph Atwill. Supposed history here. In regards to Caesar as the Messiah. And Joseph Atwill may be losing his marbles, stating Elvis Presley was a mind-controlled slave, and that Elvis stated, and here we quote, "I am a man, a human being now, but what is, quote, me, unquote, is not from here. I am from out there," or outer space. You think I'm making this up, but it's true. You'll know that one day. Elvis to Wonder, June Hill. The story of Elvis begins with encounters from cosmic beings, granting powers to move clouds, levitate objects, heal the sick, and peer into the future. Social engineering sees the future it wants to create, and Elvis has been the king of sexual programming. Authoritarian personalities perpetuate the dominance of our rulers through abuse of our childlike wonder. This is how Donald Trump was elected president, and why there is the religious figure Elvis Aaron Presley. Yeah, and there's a church of Elvis. Elvis was told his origins lay on a blue star planet in the Orion constellation. A blue beam radiated his house the day he was born. Elvis believed they had come to prepare humanity for the new age. Consistently, we find icons, idols, and leaders communicating with beings from another dimension. Elvis was no different. How will this play into the creation of our culture by the intelligence agencies? And then here's some history on Joseph Atwill, who began his religious studies, as we stated, as a youth in Japan at the only English-speaking school in the country, the Jesuit-run St. Mary's Military Academy. The majority of each of his school days was spent studying Greek, Latin, and the Bible, which he found fascinating, although he eventually drifted away from the faith. Having studied computer science, blah blah blah, he spent over a decade studying hundreds of books, among them the works of Robert Eisman and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Together with Eisenman, Atwill wrote a paper on the dating of the Dead Sea Scrolls. While studying the two most prominent works of the first century, Josephus, Wars of the Jews, and Gospels, Atwill noticed a series of parallels occurring in sequence between the military campaign of the Roman Caesar, Titus Flavius, and the ministry of Jesus. His findings led him to a startling new conclusion about the origins of Christianity, that a Roman imperial family, the Flavians, had created Christianity to pacify the Jews' rebellion against Rome, and even more incredibly, they had placed a literary satire within the Gospels and Wars of the Jews to inform posterity of this fact. The results of Atwill's research are set out in his book, Caesar's Messiah, and so forth. The Flavian signature edition of Caesar's Messiah, Create Space 2011, adds the most detailed presentation of the parallels Atwill discovered between the works of Josephus and the Book of Luke. This is a person's exposure of Kenneth Humphreys, one of the critics in the Caesar's Messiah. And states there's no way that religion, especially Christianity of all sorts, could screw us over and mess humanity up that badly. Here's a list of links that he's included, just to let you see what he's asking about. However, like he said, there's the 10% of him that says Christianity is not guilty of the crimes told there. And he's saying all he's asking is a second opinion with any extra facts to support or debunk his words, just to see if what Kenneth Humphreys, the author of the book and the site's owner, is right or wrong about this, because he is right, and if Christianity did cause those crimes, humanity, then he'd rather not follow a possible religious tyranny that puts false words in God's mouth, and of tortures away good, real and useful knowledge and learning that leads to man's growth and enlightenment, just so they make people blindly obey a mythical person that may or may not exist in the first place. He's already down to his last leg of his Christianity, his Christian beliefs, and he's already this close, or that close, to tossing his faith down the toilet. Again, he still has his doubts about this. Is he and the whole site right or completely wrong? And he's provided all these links, but they're not referral links. And these people put their comments underneath. Some were horrible to other people who just voiced their opinions. Here's one on Robert Eisenman. He's an American biblical scholar, historian, archaeologist and poet. Professor of Middle East religions, archaeology and Islamic law, or Sharia law probably, and director of the Institute for the Study of Judeo-Christian Origins at California State University, Long Beach. Eisenman led the campaign to free up access to the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1980s and 90s, and as a result of this campaign is associated with a theory that combines Essenes with Palestinian Messianism, or what some might refer to as Palestinian Christianity, a theory opposed to establishment or consensus scholarship. Before this, Eisenman spent 5 years on the road in the United States, etc., etc. Yeah, because at that time, when these Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, it put the Roman Catholic in the fears. They were afraid that if revealed to the public, they may reveal a completely different story to what they were putting out there. So apparently they sent a priest, be he a Jesuit or a Roman Catholic priest, to go and have a look at those scriptures, help translate those scriptures, possibly to mess with them, you know. So if they did come out, they would tell a Roman Catholic version, right? It would be close as to the Roman Catholic, apparently. Yeah. That's just what we're assuming. Okay. Go do your own personal research on that. Don't take our word for it. Is this another one on Robert Eisenman? It's the same one. Okay, I've got it twice. Okay, this is Caesar's Messiah. The neutrality of this article is disputed. Relevant discussion may be found on the talk page. Don't remove this message until conditions to do so are met. June 2021. Okay. This is the kind of thing Wikipedia does to verify that whoever posts information up there, it's accurate, it's true. Okay, then that's why the neutrality of this article is disputed. Okay. So Wikipedia is a good source of information. Some say that it's copied from other people's blogs or websites or whatever, but all this information is actually on these websites, so yeah, you have no problem with it. Just rumours start, you know. People say this, people say that. But yeah, it's a good source. They have a lot of resources underneath. You can go check it out when you're doing your own personal research. Okay. Yeah, so we've done all the research on these characters in this video.
He used him as a translator in his entourage. He used him to appeal to the rebels to surrender.
At this point, Josephus became a turncoat and worked with the Flavians against the rebellion.
Meanwhile, chaos is increasing back in Rome, where Nero's rule is being threatened.
In the year 68, the Senate found the courage to depose Nero, and he committed suicide. Now, in that circumstance, Vespasian was a prime candidate to become emperor.
In the middle of this war, Vespasian returned to Rome and seized the throne. The Flavians then became the imperial family.
With Vespasian becoming the new Caesar in Rome, Titus stays behind on the battlefield and sets his sights on Jerusalem. where the other two key events take place. Titus encircles Jerusalem with a wall, and finally he razes the temple, leaving not one stone atop another.
Did not Jesus the Christ actually say in the scriptures that that temple would be flattened and there would be no stone on top of the other, right? Totally destroyed? Yeah, which lots of people quote. Yeah. So was he prophesying of a future event? Because it happened, what, in 70 AD? Yeah. The Romans totally flattened it. And maybe the Wailing Wall is not that remaining wall of that Jewish temple. Maybe it's further down country, yeah, because of that scripture saying that not one stone will remain on top of another, that temple would be totally destroyed, etc., etc.
It took a while. They eventually had to bring on starvation by building a wall, a barricade entirely enveloping the city.
What happens, of course, is the temple in 70 is completely destroyed.
Okay, this lady here, Acaria S.
Titus stays behind on the battlefield and sets it.
Apparently is using a pen name, Acaria S, and she's probably got some sort of mythical seer, mystic, astro-theologist or something, astro-theorist, that's the word, tendencies. Okay, we did have information on her. Just find that word. We have a bookmark here, possibly of her. We should have three of them. Information about her. Okay, which one we're going to look at first? Look at that one first. Yeah, here's a history of her. She was born Dorothy Milne Murdoch. She died in 2015. Better known by her pen names Acaria S and D.M. Murdoch. She was an American writer supporting the Christ myth theory, that it was all mythical. The story of Jesus is a piece of mythology possessing no substantial claims to historical fact. That Jesus never existed as a historical person but was rather a mingling of various pre-Christian myths, sun deities and dying and rising deities. She wrote and operated a website focused on history, religion and spirituality and astrotheology. She asserted the pre-Christian religious civilizations understood their myths as allegorical, but Christians are liberated evidence by destroying or suppressing literature after they attained control of the Roman Empire, leading to widespread illiteracy in the ancient world, ensuring the mythical nature of Christ's story was hidden. She argued the Christian canon, as well as its important figures, were based on Roman, Greek, Egyptian and other cultures' myths. Her theories are variously received by mainstream scholars. For instance, Robert M. Price criticised her first book while praising later writing. She also wrote against the ancient astronauts' theories, asserting they may be prompted by the same type of motivation that produced the Bible, a chronicle largely consisting of the plagiarized myths of other cultures refashioned as fact concerning perpetuated legend-based characterizations, and may be driven by the attempt to validate biblical myth as historical under a different interpretation. And there's a life history. Reception. Murdoch's work received strong criticism from New Testament scholars and historians of early Christians. Agnostic, New Testament scholar, he's actually a agnostic atheist. New Testament scholar Bart D. Ehrman wrote in his Did Jesus Exist? The historical argument for Jesus of Nazareth that all of Arcaria's major points are in fact wrong, and her book is filled with so many factual errors and outlandish assertions that it is hard to believe the author is serious. Taking her as representative of some other writers about the Christian myth theory, he continues, mythicists of this ilk should not be surprised excuse me, that their views are not taken seriously by real scholars, mentioned by experts in the field, or even read by them. There's another professor criticised her work for her anti-Christian outlook, a lack of any proper sense of reality, failure to give adequate references, inability to interpret primary sources correctly, and dependence on inaccurate, out-of-date secondary sources rather than primary evidence. And church religion scholar Clinton Bennett talks about her, and so forth. Atheist activist and Christ mythicist Richard Carrier criticised her use of the inscriptions at Luxor to make the claim that the story of Jesus' birth was inspired by the Luxor story of the birth of Horus. Theologian and Christ mythicist Robert M. Price also criticised Murdoch's first book while promoting her Sons of God, Krishna, Buddha and Christ Unveiled in the pre-Nicene Testament 54 formative text, and writing forward to her, who was Jesus, fingerprints of the Christ. And she eventually dies, and this is a blog by John Leonard, author and freelance writer. Okay, and he speaks about Richard Carrier, the atheist we mentioned earlier. Carrier does hold a PhD, but he doesn't teach at a university. He offers online courses on his work that panders to the conspiracy theorist crowd. That's all for them, and basically does anything for a buck. And the credentials of Miss Murdoch may be found here. Her research formed much of the material presented about an alleged conspiracy to create a myth called Jesus Christ, seen in the movie Zeitgeist. She was obviously a very intelligent woman, but she clearly had an agenda to destroy Christianity, which she vigorously pursued. But Christians should not celebrate her death. Instead, we should pray for her soul and for her comfort of her loved ones. There's comments down here. People arguing, hating on each other over it. Yeah, especially this one here, calling herself a Career B, and someone else says, wow, you criticise her pen name yet copy it, do you even know the etymology of the word, and so forth, back and forth. And John Leonard is in between, moderating, etc, etc. We have one more for you. Another one here. No, it's the same guy. So looking at the wrong one. From Logos Media. And states D.M. Murdoch, aka Acharya S, gained expertise in several religions, as well as knowledge about other esoterica and mystical subjects. She is the author of several books, including The Christ Conspiracy, Greatest Story Ever Sold, Sons of God, Krishna, Buddha and Christ, Unveiled, Who is Jesus, Fingerprints of the Christ, and blah blah blah. An independent scholar, she majored in classics and Greek civilization at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, USA, and so forth. It's a little bit about her. She died of cancer. One of the most controversial religious scholars in the entire world is his guest today. Back for round 2. And it's been more than a year since she was here last, and she's probably been scheduled for this part 2 for more than a year. And her guest is D.M. Murdoch, aka Acharya, the only woman that Christians love to hate more than Eve. Are Christianity and the story of Jesus based on more ancient sun-worshipping religions? Does the story of Jesus have its roots in Horus, the ancient Egyptian sun god? Today we'll be discussing, or he was discussing, Acharya's brand new book, Christ in Egypt. Those of you who think Zeitgeist Part 1 Acharya's work have been debunked, get out your library cards, because you're going to have some homework to do. Yeah. And maybe you can go here and have a look at that. Okay, hopefully it redirects us to StellarHousePublishing.com. Okay, and this is about Acharya S. sharing her outstanding work in astrotheology. Okay, let's see if it shows pictures of her books. No, don't look like it. Oh, here we go. There's her books. Might actually have that on audio. Okay. A little bit of detail about it. See if it'll give us a review on it. A little about it, spiel about it. Okay, it's back cover. Okay. Kind of hard to see. But yeah, that's her books. We tend to think she took that pen name because she's some sort of mystic or seer or, you know, something like that.
Sites on Jerusalem, where the other 2 key events take place. Titus encircles Jerusalem with a wall, and finally he razes the temple, leaving not one stone atop another.
It took a while. They eventually had to bring on starvation by building a wall, a barricade entirely enveloping the city.
What happens, of course, is the temple in 70 is completely destroyed.
For the Jews, it was the ultimate calamity because, of course, this was the house of their God, and it was destroyed by the Romans quite thoroughly. Titus, of course, was the victor of this great siege. Titus carried the spoils of this captured city back to Rome for his triumph. He took the treasures of the temple, their famous 7-branch candlestick, you can see it on the arch of Titus in Rome. It celebrates that tremendous victory of Rome again triumphant, and Titus, of course, is the hero of the day.
So what we just saw is that Wailing Wall, supposedly or stated as not actually the remains of the original Jewish temple, as thought or claimed, But the remaining wall of the Roman fortress Antonia, so could that be that wall, the last of that wall that they put around Jerusalem? Again, not the remaining wall of the temple. If, as Christ prophesied, the temple will be totally flattened and not one stone will be seen or be upon another. Right? Ask yourself that. Go do your personal research on that. This is a statement by Brother Nathaniel that's actually the wall of the fortress Antonia, possibly where the Romans overlooked the Jews and stopped any zealots or rebellions or uprisings or trouble in the markets, etc., etc. Again, go do your own personal research on that. And watch this video, this documentary, Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus. We'll repeat that. We need some water, I suppose. Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus, the official version on YouTube. We'll leave the links to everything below our video. So we hope that you enjoyed this rather lengthy video. We may cut it into parts to make it easier for you to watch. If you did, subscribe to our channel, Ministry of the Real Truth. Give us a like, add your comments below in the comment section, and then go share it with all your family, friends, neighbours, strangers, Christian friends, Islamic friends, etc., etc. and